all not believe that Delhi made a very smart move by switching its public transport system to CNG or compressed natural gas from the highly polluting petrol and diesel? Well, that myth has been busted in the latest findings by International Council of Clean Transport or ICCT. Now, CNG vehicles in Delhi and Gurugram emit nitrogen oxides, which are noxious, at levels of 1.5 to 14 times higher than the Bharat stage of BS6 standard vehicles. This is not only a challenge to the notion that CNG is a cleaner fuel, it also tells us there is absolutely no way forward to deal with the rising vehicle pollution across Indian cities than to accelerate the mass adoption of zero-emission electric vehicles or EVs. Welcome everyone, I'm Manisha Natarajan. On the Urban Agenda, we ask a very simple question. What is preventing you and me from switching to an EV two-wheeler or an electric car? How can we accelerate the adoption of clean mobility and stem the rising vehicle pollution which is causing us our health and life? The government is making yet another push and bringing in the Electric Mobility Promotion Scheme, in short known as EMPS 2024. Yet, so many of us are not sure at all on whether we should switch, what are the problem areas, and are we making a smart decision by switching? So let's get the answers from Amit Bhatt, Managing Director of the International Council on Clean Transportation India, and Ranjita Ravi, co-founder of Orxa Energies. She's a young founder of an electric bike called Mantis. So we have the manufacturing side, we have the think tank policymakers. So let's get some opinions. My first question, Amit, is to you. The findings are actually, something we had been thinking about is CNG that clean. And now it says, no, it isn't. And 1.4 to 15 times higher than BS6 is quite a revelation.
Absolutely. But we have to remember about 25 years back when CNG came in the conversation. That time, our fight was largely against particulate matter. So the black smoke that you will see will coming out from the vehicle. Now, CNG has helped us reduce considerably particulate matter emission. But as technology has evolved, as vehicles have become more sophisticated, we are seeing there are other criteria pollutants that are coming into picture. And the findings are shocking. One, we have seen there's a massive improvement of shifting from BS4 to BS6. Yet, many cases, BS6 vehicles also have very high limit in real world as compared to lab values. And the main culprit is the commercial vehicle, both for passenger and goods vehicles category.
So commercial vehicles are emitting the most, and under lab condition, BS6 also looks actually much better option than CNG, but on real roads, it isn't working out too so. So clearly, Ranjita, we have to move to electric mobility, isn't it? And the government has come out with EMPS 2024, which has replaced FAME Phase 2 subsidies from April 1st, 2024. Now, this marks their commitment to promoting electric vehicles. But on ground, as manufacturer, as a user of EV for several years, how do you think we can make it a mass movement? I don't see it happening. I mean, yes, we are talking about two-wheeler numbers moving very quickly, but not fast enough.
Yes, I think that's a very valid point. I mean, when we started Orxa Energies back in 2015, we were just at few hundred units. I think even back in 2021, we were probably talking about a couple of hundred units a month. And now we are at 1 lakh a month. But let's put that into perspective, right? All vehicles that were sold electric in India last year was about 16, 17 lakh units. But we do easily so many more total number of vehicles. Just all EVs since 2016, say it's just been 39, 40 lakhs that we've sold ever in India. But just two-wheelers, we've sold more than 12 crores in the same period. So there's a way to go. There's a long way to go. But I think at this point of time in the industry, we would say EVs have reached a certain inflection point.
Okay, so you're saying there's been a big shift, 1.0 to 3.0, but there are actually huge on-ground challenges, Amit Bhatt, isn't it? So I'm going to highlight the case of Mr. Kaul, one of the early adopters of EV, and I think, Amit, you have met him and also heard him out. He kind of reached out to me. He owns an EV car, lives in Noida at one of the ATS projects. The RWA there is refusing to give permission or a NOC to EV owners to install individual EV charging points, and the community chargers are simply not enough. They're slow chargers, cars come there, then they don't move out, the owners don't move them out. These are actually huge number of on-ground realities. Take me through your own studies on what is preventing consumers like me from switching, and trust me, I've been wanting to do that, and there's whole host of my friends who are thinking EV, but they have questions after questions on their mind. Amit.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of big challenges to EV adoption. One is the upfront cost. The other big segment of challenge is the charging infrastructure. And when we typically talk about charging infrastructure, everybody talks about public charging infrastructure, now, which is important. But studies from US and other places have shown that in personal vehicle category, about 80-85% charging happens at home or at workplace. Now, this is where the problem gets magnified many folds. I am an EV user myself for last more than 2 years, and I've been struggling. I live in Gurgaon, Sector 58 Grand Arch. I've been struggling with my RWA for 2 years plus to allow me to set up charging in my parking locations where I am willing to take care all of the cost of the setting up the charging infrastructure, but the RWA is just not allowing it. So what do you need? I just need something called a 16 ampere plug to start with. I need to plug my vehicle. Now, sometimes the community chargers, when they came up, they were serving the purpose when the vehicle ownerships were few. But now many societies have very large EV ownership, and it's a big struggle. So how do we resolve it, right? And I think the learning for us is from learning from Norway, which is the EV capital of the world. About 87% of the new vehicles sold are electric. And they have something called a right to charge. So if you are an EV user, if you want to set up charging, the RWA equivalent, the distribution company, the municipal corporation, no one can deny you. So you have a right to charge. And if you have a parking space, the authorities will give you. The big problem right now is that since it becomes very inconvenient to find and coordinate in the community charging, I know a lot of people who want to buy electric car are not buying because they don't want to get into the hassle. I firmly believe if we are able to resolve this charging in parking location, we will see a much larger uptake of electric vehicles in the personal vehicle category.
Ranjita, 3.3 kilowatt is the charger which individual homes need to actually charge even an electric car, lower if you want to charge a Mantis probably. Why is it such a big issue? I mean, do we need a better policy? Because again, the new policy talks about the fact that yes, we need to improve the charging infrastructure, but I'm not so sure whether we've got through the state governments a clear indication to RWAs, to societies, that this has to become a priority. Is that the biggest missing link here?
I think there's a lot of misinformation as well. I think building bylaws did come by some time back, which said that 20% of the parking has to be dedicated to EV parking. But, all that has to be ratified at every state level, at every society, municipal level, etc. So I think even at the urban local body level, there's a lot of information, education, communication that's still pending. The misinformation has not helped. Petrol vehicles catch fire every day. Yesterday, someone in my network had a car that they were test driving, and that caught fire. A second-hand vehicle, premium second-hand vehicle. It was not in the news, but if you had an EV that would catch fire, it would be on the front pages. Right? The misinformation or the sensationalism of the new technology doesn't help either, which I think leads to a lot of reticence at the RWA's level. In individual houses, so for example, I have been charging my EV, but I'm privileged enough to have an individual house that I stay at. We use a normal 16 amp, what Amit was just mentioning, a 3.3 kilowatt 16 amp line, which would be the same that is there for your house heater or your house mixie or your house microwave. It's the same. It's just that you need to take care of the grounding properly, the earthing that needs to happen for this charging, right? And a lot of EV manufacturers that put up charging in your house. So for example, my car manufacturer, EV car manufacturer, puts up a charger in the house that you can use. And that the electrician that comes to install that charger took special steps to ensure that the earthing and the grounding was done properly for that. And there were the multiple checkpoints that he had to make sure that this earthing was proper. Similarly, I think any time that you set up charging or any of these community charging that they set up or public charging, one of the important steps that they do is the grounding. That's very important to ensure that the EV charging happens safely and properly.
Amit, what's your answer to two things? One, that the EV batteries are expensive, don't last long. I think early experiences with earlier models of EVs, some people have had issues. They don't run fast enough on the road. They don't accelerate fast. So these are other issues which do keep coming to people's mind.
Absolutely. But we also have to understand that technology has improved hugely in the last couple of years. Now we have vehicles which are giving 400, 450 kilometers, and I'm talking about cars in a single charge. We have seen a lot of charging infrastructure coming up on highway. We have seen even better quality of vehicles. We have so many choices right now, which is not there earlier. And again, I've been using my car for last two electric car for 2+ years, done over 50,000 kilometers. I have never run out of charge on one single time, and I have traveled distances 1,000, 1,500 kilometers at a go. So I think a lot of it is misconception myth, which people have. But once you come onto the system and you start using your electric vehicle, you will see it's not that difficult. Yes, it does require a little bit of planning because of the charging infrastructure development on the highways, but that will only improve with the passage of time.
Stay with us, both of you. I'm going to come back and also understand a little bit more in terms of how do we get this misinformation around EVs, EV adoption out of the way, how do we educate RWAs, and how do we also ensure that there are enough models and choices for people to buy, whether it's two-wheelers, motorcycles, or electric cars. Are we manufacturing enough? Another question. Stay with us. Wondered whether it's time to switch your car or two-wheeler to electric and then held back on the decision, unsure that is it a wise decision? Well, some of the reasons which we've already discussed why consumers hesitate in switching to an EV is cost sensitivity, but people believe that they're more expensive, batteries are costlier. That's not so anymore. Charging infrastructure, now that's one which is clearly a big roadblock. As we discussed, slow progress in developing charging infrastructure, absence of standardized charging stations, and RWs confused on the way forward. Society is confused on how much do we allow private installation of charges. Now, range anxiety, again, our guests have already said that the actual driving range of EVs when fully loaded is not really less than what's advertised or a cause for worry for users. You should be able to run your car absolutely, without any issues on one battery full charge. Now, some of us also believe that EVs might not be as green as they seem because they often use electricity, which is from fossil fuels. And what do you do with the battery once it's run its course or its life? Let me just bring back both my panelists. Ranjita, my first question to you is that, look, These are some of the myths that have already been busted by both of you. In terms of the choices available to the consumers, are we fast enough? Do we have enough choices? If I want to go out and buy a EV, let's say in the range of 5 to 10 lakhs, do I have enough choices? If I want to buy a bike or a two-wheeler? Are there any bottlenecks on the manufacturing side that you'd like taken care of?
I think as a consumer, there are quite a few choices coming up. There are models being announced pretty much every festive season, every quarter. Large two-wheeler OEMs, the traditional two-wheeler OEMs that are all announcing 6-7 models in the next few 1 or 2 years as well. Even in cars, there are quite a few models available. So I don't think consumer is really waiting on a choice. In terms of manufacturers as well, I think our biggest challenge has always been in terms of two things: supply chain and costing, right? What happens and where are we getting these raw materials from, or the components and systems that go in the vehicle? That's one, in terms of supply chain. And the second one is in terms of, are we actually making it to call? Just as a thumb rule, EV customers are willing to pay their vehicle, ICE engine vehicle, plus maybe a few months to a year of petrol. That's the sort of a thumb rule that people are willing to pay, because you're not paying for the petrol, right? You're paying for electricity either at home or in office, which is much cheaper than a public charging station. So these are two concerns, primary concerns of manufacturers. EV charging will go there. I mean, we are very, very less right now. If you say you need one charger per 20 EVs, or one charger plus for even 40 EVs, we're very far away. We have about 12,000 or so public EV charging, and I think we need something like 80,000 for the vehicles we have already on the road right now. So there's a way to go.
So the new policy on electric vehicle adoption by the government, Amit Bhatt, does also talk about localization, PLI benefits. Sum it up for me in terms of what are some of the critical things that the government should focus on if it wants mass adoption and faster adoption of electric vehicles.
Absolutely. So I think we looked at globally what are the 5 most best effective policies that can accelerate electric vehicle transition. And we came up to 3 demand side and 2 supply side policies. So incentives like FAME, state EV policies are good. Awareness campaigns like Switch Delhi had in Delhi to raise awareness is also great. Charging infrastructure, as we discussed, is coming up, and it will accelerate with passage of time. So these are great 3 demand side policies. We also need 2 supply side policies that we don't have right now. Many countries have announced a phase out target for ICE vehicles. Now, what it does, it gives a long-term picture to OEMs that eventually they will have to shift to zero-emission vehicle, and they start product planning exercise. In India, we don't have a national
manufacturers and bike manufacturers. They're the manufacturers.
Absolutely. It's manufacturers that future is electric, so let's get into planning. Some of the OEMs have done it. Some of the large OEMs still India don't have electric vehicle on their portfolio, and the outlook is also is not that strong. So some kind of phase out target is important. The 5th important piece, which California used very well, is a ZEV sales mandate, which is you are mandating an OEM to sell a certain percentage of their fleet as electric. And this also pushes them to come with the newer models and newer makes. So supply side policies coupled with demand side policies can really accelerate this transition in India.
Answer this question, which is in a lot of people's mind, that how, if I'm making that switch, morally, am I not causing more harm to the planet? A, because I'm drawing electricity still to charge my electric vehicle, and B, I'm polluting by the end of life batteries going back into the waste system. Amit, do you want to quickly take that, and then I'll get Ranjita's last comment as well.
It's a complete myth. We did calculation for India, and we found an electric car in India is almost cleaner by 20% in terms of life cycle emission. As we clean the grid, these numbers will improve. So there is absolutely no question.
Ranjita, I'm also going to get your opinion on battery. A lot of us are confused, and I keep hearing that look, batteries themselves, how sustainable are they? I mean, can you use them again? And how quickly do they land up in the mounting waste of the cities?
Yeah, that's again, I completely agree with Amit on this. So just for you to understand, what an EV uses is just the top 20% of the life of a lithium ion. The rest of the 80% is still there to use. So we work, for example, with other companies that take our battery packs at the end of their automotive useful life and put it, say, in off-grid use. So places that don't have a grid, or people who use it for stationary storage, you can still derive more 5 to 10 years of life out of that battery, and then it goes into recycling. And recycling, I think, is extremely important. And there are some very good startups and some companies doing good work in India because we don't have those minerals, the mines in India, right? We don't have that resource. So I think it's
So
very
true.
important,
Correct.
exactly, to once we import it, to recover as much as we can and put it back into use.
All right, I'm going to conclude by saying what my guest said. Rising air pollution is a major crisis across Indian cities, and the winter is coming, so the clean air that we kind of breathe now is going to disappear very, very soon. So a massive transformation and adoption of mobility or clean mobility is essential. This is Manisha Natarajan signing off. Goodbye.